Admiral Helena Cross stood in the observatory of Lunar Station, staring at the emergency transmission that had just shattered 20 years of careful peace negotiations. The holographic display showed the smoking ruins of the civilian transport Harmony's Dream, floating lifeless in the neutral zone between human and Vector space. "Confirmed casualties?" she asked quietly, though she already knew the answer would break something fundamental inside her. Commander Torres consulted his tactical pad, his weathered face grim. 147 civilians, including 32 children returning from the educational exchange on Kepler Prime. Among the dead. He paused, reading the manifest. Emma Chen, age 12. Daughter of Ambassador Chen. The name hit Admiral Cross like a physical blow. She had watched Emma grow up in the diplomatic corps, a bright, curious child who spoke 4 human languages and had been learning Vector poetry. The girl who had insisted that humans and aliens could be friends, who had volunteered for the cultural exchange program despite the risks. "Vector explanation?" Cross asked, though her voice had taken on a tone that made Commander Torres unconsciously step back. "They claimed the transport violated their territorial boundaries. Security footage shows otherwise. The Harmony's Dream was 3 light minutes inside neutral space when the Vector dreadnought Blood of Conquest opened fire without warning." Admiral Cross closed her eyes, feeling the weight of a decision that would reshape the galaxy. For 2 decades, humanity had played the role of the peaceful younger species, negotiating carefully with the Vector Empire, accepting their territorial demands, overlooking their increasingly aggressive expansion into neutral zones. The Vector thought they understood humans. They saw a species that preferred diplomacy to warfare, that chose exploration over conquest, that built hospitals on new worlds instead of military bases. What they didn't understand was that humanity's peaceful nature came with conditions. "Commander Torres," Admiral Cross said, her voice carrying a finality that made the veteran officer straighten to attention. "Send a priority Alpha transmission to Earth Command. Tell them." She paused, knowing that her next words would echo through history. "Tell them the children are no longer safe. It's time." The message that reached Earth 12 hours later was brief, coded, and had been prepared for this exact scenario decades earlier. Within minutes of its receipt, President Maria Santos stood in the Situation Room beneath Geneva, surrounded by the Joint Chiefs and a group of individuals whose very existence was humanity's most closely guarded secret. "Confirmation received, Madam President," reported General Harrison, his fingers dancing over a holographic interface that most humans had never seen. "The ancient fleet protocols are standing by for activation." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, director of the Lazarus Project, stepped forward. She was elderly now, but her eyes still held the fire that had driven humanity's greatest secret for over a century. "Madam President, once we activate the fleet, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what we really are." President Santos looked at the tactical display showing the debris field where Emma Chen and 146 other innocents had died. "Dr. Tanaka, how long have we been preparing for this moment?" "Since the first radio signals from the Vector Empire reached Earth in 2157, Tanaka replied. 112 years of preparation, of building, of waiting. The truth was something that only 37 humans in the entire species knew. Humanity had never been peaceful by choice. They had been peaceful by necessity, buying time for the greatest military buildup in galactic history. The moment Earth's radio telescopes had detected organized transmissions from the Vector Empire, humanity's greatest minds had reached a terrifying conclusion. They were not alone, and they were almost certainly outgunned. The response had been swift, secret, and utterly ruthless in its scope. While humanity presented a face of peaceful exploration to the galaxy, the Lazarus Project had been working in hidden facilities throughout the solar system, reverse engineering theoretical technologies that shouldn't have been possible. Quantum computers that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Fusion reactors that drew power from parallel universes. Weapons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level. Most importantly, ships. Hundreds of ships, built in the shadows of Jupiter's moons and the asteroid belt, crewed by volunteers whose existence had been erased from all official records. The ancient fleet, ancient not because of age, but because they represented technology so advanced, it seemed to come from a lost civilization. Activation codes confirmed, Dr. Tanaka announced. All vessels responding. Fleet Admiral Zhang is requesting. Final target confirmation. President Santos took one last look at the image of little Emma Chen, the girl who had dreamed of peace between species, whose death would now spark the largest military campaign in human history. Target confirmed, she said quietly. The Vaktar Empire. All of it. In the hidden shipyards of Europa, Titan, and Ceres, massive bay doors that had remained sealed for decades began to open. What emerged defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about human technology. The ships were magnificent and terrible sleek vessels that bent light around their hulls, powered by engines that harvested energy from quantum foam itself. Each one was larger than any human vessel the galaxy had ever seen, equipped with weapons that operated on principles that most species hadn't even theorized. Fleet Admiral Zhang, a woman who officially didn't exist and hadn't aged normally in 30 years due to experimental life extension technology, stood on the bridge of the flagship Righteous Fury. Around her, the ancient fleet materialized in formation 215 vessels that had been waiting in dark space for over a century. Fleet Admiral, came the transmission from Earth. You are authorized for Operation Lazarus. Rules of engagement. Total victory. The children are no longer safe. Admiral Zhang nodded grimly. All ships, this is Lazarus Actual. Target, Vaktar Space. Our mission, ensure that no human child will ever again die to alien aggression. Let's remind the galaxy why humans chose peace and what happens when that choice is taken away from us. The Vaktar Empire received their first indication that something was wrong when their border stations simply stopped transmitting. No distress calls, no battle reports, just silence spreading across their frontier like a wave. By the time Vaktar Command realized what was happening, human ships were already striking at the heart of their empire. Not just attacking, systematically dismantling every military installation, every shipyard, every weapon that could threaten a human civilian. The war lasted 6 days. When it ended, the Vaktar Empire no longer existed as a military power. Their fleets were scrap metal, their weapons factories were craters, and their leadership was facing trial for crimes against innocents before a galactic tribunal that had materialized seemingly overnight. Admiral Helena Cross received the final casualty report as she stood once again in Lunar Station's observatory. The ancient fleet had performed flawlessly, 0 human military casualties, surgical precision in targeting, and overwhelming technological superiority that had redefined the galactic balance of power. Admiral Commander Torres reported, "Message from Earth Command. They're asking about the fleet's next deployment." Cross looked out at the stars, thinking of Emma Chen and all the other children who would now grow up in a galaxy where humanity was no longer seen as prey. "Tell them the fleet returns to the shadows," she said. "Let's go back to being peaceful explorers. But make sure everyone remembers we chose to be peaceful. We can choose otherwise." The galaxy learned a lesson that day. Never mistake kindness for weakness, and never, ever harm a human child. Some species are peaceful because they lack the capacity for war. Humans were peaceful because they preferred it that way.